The three most recent winners of the Iowa caucus in America, Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum and Ted Cruz, may not mean very much to you now, but that's because precisely none of them went on to become US president or even, in fact, the Republican nominee. Iowans don't often pick the winners, but they're very good at eliminating and pulverizing losers, a bit like the man they backed in a landslide last night. Donald Trump didn't just win, he obliterated his rivals and every record. Number one across virtually every county. He won 98 out of 99. The only one he lost by a single vote. And across pretty much every demographic, from young to old to college to non-college, you name it, Trump cleaned up. And his two main rivals, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, trailed further behind him than any second and third in Iowa caucus history. Well, Vivek Ramaswamy has now quit the race after coming fourth. He will now endorse Trump. And in his victory speech, Donald Trump was, well, dare I say it, he almost sounded presidential.
What a turnout, what a crowd. And I really think this is time now for everybody, our country, to come together. We want to come together, whether it's Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative. It would be so nice if we could come together and straighten out the world and straighten out the problems and straighten out all of the death and destruction that we're witnessing.
That's the one word you think about when you think of Donald Trump. Inclusive, bringing everybody together. I'll believe it when I see it, but never believe anyone who tells you with any certainty about what may happen here, especially when it involves Donald Trump. A year ago, you may remember, he was completely written off, not least by people like me. Well, Governor DeSantis was breathing down his neck in the polls, ploughing hundreds of millions into selling himself as Trump without the baggage, and it looked like it was working. Trump had lost the 2020 election by a bruising margin, whether he admits it or not. Of course, he doesn't, but he did. He'd helmed the Republicans into a disastrous midterms after stacking the ballots with his cronies and, frankly, a few lunatics. He was facing a mountain of legal action that's since become an avalanche, 91 criminal charges in 4 separate cases, from paying off the porn star Stormy Daniels to inciting the riots at the Capitol on January the 6th. Any one of these could land him behind bars. So he's been a serial loser. He cost, of course, during his 4-year tenure, the first time the Republicans the Senate and the House of Representatives. Many think he's a serial liar and dangerous, but he had the biggest win in Iowa caucus history last night. The comeback king is on the march. And if the general election was held tomorrow, would anyone really bet against Trump beating a Joe Biden who looks increasingly senile? Frank Sinatra once said that the best revenge is massive success, and he should know. He was a superstar in the early 40s, and then he became a has-been by the end of that decade. Hollywood's top talent agent, Swifty Lazar, said that Sinatra was a dead man and said even Jesus couldn't get resurrected in this town. Well, we know how that ended. Sinatra won an Oscar and went on to become one of the greatest showbiz icons of all time in one of the most extraordinary comebacks in cultural history. Well, now Donald Trump is potentially on the verge of becoming the political version of Sinatra, and he's definitely doing it his way. The question the world should now be asking is, which Trump will we get if he does pull this off? Will he be the deal-making, unifying, pragmatist, almost charming Trump we heard last night in his victory speech, or the vengeful, messianic version who we saw in his last tenure? He sees himself rather like the man in the video he shared just before yesterday's vote.
And on June 14th, 1946, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God gave us Trump. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, fix this country, work all day, fight the Marxists, eat supper, then go to the Oval Office and stay past midnight at a meeting of the heads of state. So God made Trump.
Well, President Biden is historically unpopular. His latest approval ratings are disastrous. A majority of Americans, including the majority of Democrats, think he's too old to run again. Inflation has whacked Americans in their pockets, and there's general disillusionment about the state of the country. And, of course, there are 2 major wars that have erupted on his watch. For many voters, Trump is looking less like a democracy-threatening demagogue and more like the entertaining showman who spits in the face of the establishment and presided over the country when everything cost less and none of the America's allies were at war. Of course, a lot can and will happen between now and November. Trump could be forced to drop out. He might be convicted of serious crimes. Anyone on either side could drop dead, let's be honest. You're talking about a person of 81 against a person nearly 79 or 78. But the race for number 2 is therefore not as pointless as it might seem, because the number 2 could potentially become number 1 should something happen to Donald Trump in this race, even if he wins the nomination. And it's that is, I think, engrossing Washington right now. Joining me now to discuss Donald Trump's victory, the host of Your Voice America, Bill Mitchell, Rochelle Richardson, better known as Silk from Diamond and Silk, and here in the studio, former Conservative MP Louise Metz. Well, before we get into Trump, Louise, there's just some also breaking news back in the UK, which is Rishi Sunak facing a slew of resignations from senior members of his own party tonight, including Lee Anderson, one of his deputy chairmen. He has quite a few deputy chairmen. And this is over the controversial Rwanda bill. For those who can't get their heads around this, what is going on and what might happen?
Well, what is going on is you've got 3 minor members of the government who've thrown their toys out of the pram and quit because they can't do maths. The fact is the right-wingers want to toughen up the Rwanda bill, make it even less easy to appeal. They want to automatically block things coming down from the European Court as opposed to letting ministers do it. The thing that they haven't thought through, though, is that there's a bigger group of centrist MPs who, if Rishi Sunak caved to these rebels, the centrist MPs would rebel. So the Tories need to stop with the circular firing squad and get a bit of discipline and compromise, or they're going to have precisely no bill whatsoever when Labour takes the reins, as they are undoubtedly going to do.